Hello now? Alrighty then. So the only advantage of perfect pitch is I can modulate my voice to sound like anything you'd like. No, sorry. Yeah, that's not good. I'm Andrew Scott. Sadly, I was knighted in 2020 in COVID, so all of my members of the RPG Guild that I founded in 1976 were the oldest RPG guild in the United States. They actually call me sir, but you don't have to. No test on that in the morning. Craig asked me to chat with you a bit about security and some concerns folks have in that industry because it seems to be a growing issue and more of a challenge. So, I got slides, but who really cares about slides? We can talk about slides, but this is much more of a conversation than anything else. And I want to share some of the information I have, and some of you may want to be in touch with me or whatever the case may be. But it's really to give you some information on what it is that's important to you and to ask really the biggest question that will matter to you. And yeah, I know, the Running Man it always works for me. You finally get this kind of a gig and you're running your own show, and that's great news. And then you find out that there's a lot more on the hook than just what you think. I always begin these conversations, and I do this in seminars all across the country, asking this question. And you're the only one who can't answer because you know the answer now. But the question really is how long can you afford to be down? And that is the toughest thing to answer because most people think that is a function of time. It is not. Your down is money. How long you can afford to be down is how long you can afford it. So, as an example, I've been dealing with a client that was hit by ransomware, which is in the news. You hear it all the time lately. And their ransom amount was $150 million. They're a $1.2 billion company. They're losing about $4 million a day. And it took 3 minutes for the attack to happen and encrypt all of their devices, putting 3,000 people out of work. And it happened because one of their computer people was using an administrator account instead of using their personal account, because it's that easy. And so that's a little bit about what we want to talk about, is understanding what downtime actually means and why it matters. Who am I? Yeah, I'm an author, but only at gunpoint, because Craig makes me write things because he wants me to write more. I write fantasy and sci-fi, but I really run this RPG guild. We have over 300 members, and we play a lot of D&D for a long time. My wife calls herself a D&D widow, even though I own 3 technology companies. So you'd think I'd be doing a better job at doing something right. And I have 6 kids. So there's always another kid, there's always another company, and there's always another gamer. But sadly, IT doesn't seem to stop. Ooh, I killed it. That was impressive. See? So at Comdex, when Windows 98 premiered, it crashed, and that was the funniest thing you ever saw. I was happily there and watched Bill Gates. Did it totally lose its mind? So maybe we aren't doing slides. That would be impressive. Or it could be I'm having a blackout and my computer is triggering that for my brain. There we go. Okay. So the 2 questions I wanted to talk a bit about were, what does it actually mean to be down? And then, are there some tips and tricks and ideas that you can do, or some basics that we should be talking about? I'm going to send you all the slides. Don't bother taking notes. I'd rather you guys were focused on asking me questions and getting a sense out of it. I hate taking notes. I always write lots of things, write, and I never read them. So I don't want you to. I want you to listen to this, and you'll find it on the YouTube channel for the 20Books stuff. But I'll also have the slides up there that you can actually look at as well. Did I break this down too? Hello? Oh, nope, still there. Okay. So the things that people ask and the things that people always wonder are, okay, I'm on my internet, I'm on my computer. Most people aren't typing anymore. They're using some kind of connected device. And when they can't connect, what happens? And so I always ask people, what is your strategy for staying connected to the internet since you don't control your ISP? What do you do about that? How many of you have a backup strategy? Nobody does. A handful, look, that's rare. So I have my internet connection, I have a backup satellite connection, and I have a fiber line. So I don't go down, but it's because I'm worse than paranoid. The other issue is, if you do go down, how long until you recover, since you don't control that? That's number one. And if your information gets hacked or grabbed, do you have a strategy of other places to get it, find it, and restore it? One of the things I did on the first day that I got here was I used one of my little devices and scanned the audience. And I discovered in about 2 minutes 350 open connections that I could get in and out of very quickly. And then, of course, wandered over to Bally's and saw if I could get into their TV network and go through their back doors, and wandered down to talk to their general manager for a moment or two. And that turns out to be yet more work for me to do. But the issue is, most people don't have a plan because you have good intentions. And your intentions are based on two things: believing that most people are inherently good, which is hopeful, but not a good strategy. And secondly, because if you haven't been hacked, you don't know what the consequences are, because it's easier to watch the news and go, ooh, wow, that wasn't me. Thank God that wasn't me. But most people had some kind of a computer crash. Most people have lost some data. Most people have suffered through those. Or in my father's case, hey, my gosh, my typewriter ribbon ran out. I got to flip it over now. So you do that 3 or 4 times on your Crown Vic, and eventually you're like, damn it, I got to replace that. The Royal Crown had a pretty good run. So I wanted to be able to make sure that we could talk a little bit about how do you strategize for that stuff, and then what are some of the basics that you could do, because security itself is a daunting and miserable task. Most technology stuff is a nightmare because the people who are supposed to teach you are arrogant and annoying. Another point from my father, his comment was always that the failing of IT people was that their arrogance was they believed that people should understand their language, instead of making sure that they made the information cogent and coherent to the actual user. So as the editor of Encyclopedia Britannica and an IBMer, he was the guy who created SRA cards, if some of you are old enough to remember SRA cards. Those are all stories he told my sisters and I as children. And so my Pinewood Derby card is in one of the SRA modules from 1972. Never mind, sorry, TMI. But he did a lot of red ink when I would be writing security stuff. And if he was still alive, he'd be looking at the slides going, no, edit, nobody can read that. And so that's stuff we got to think about. But the most important thing to remember, and the difference between you doing your job and the people who are after your money, not your data, they want your money, they use your data as the leverage point, is they have time. Now, because you don't, when you are down, it comes back to that question. Taking the time to actually figure out how long you can afford to be down is the first part of the strategy. That's the worst part. That's the part you don't want to think about, because being down is something you're like, well, there's inconveniences. My computer's not working right, my monitor's gone bad, my printer's not printing. Those are all continual technological nightmares that you struggle and deal with on a daily basis. But what I'm talking about is when you turn on your computer and either you see on your website a smiley face with the Taco Bell dog saying, thanks for the new website that I now own, or you discover that all of the books that you have written over the years are no longer under your control because they're owned by someone who now owns your domain name. And this happens all the time. Literally yesterday, 2 people that I was sharing some of this information with said, yeah, I had my account hacked and I no longer control my Facebook account. And then another person who said, yes, I've lost control of all my domains. They were re-registered by someone else because I didn't pay attention enough. And they've said $50,000 and you can have your domain back. So that's the kind of stuff we want to avoid by making sure we're doing the thing that is the hardest thing. And if coming to this event means any one thing to you, it's that this is the most expensive chat you're going to have in your time at 50 Books, because my ask of you is 1 minute of your life for the rest of your life every day. And what I mean by that is 30 to 60 seconds of vigilance every single day, adding a security frame of mind to how your day is. You're too busy. You're always on the move. Everything is hurry up and wait. I gotta go. But what I'm going to be asking of you is to take 30 seconds a day, maybe a minute, every single day from now on, to reconsider how you live your life. And then I'll share at the end of this, assuming I actually get through my slides before they say, can you stop talking yet? If I get to the end of this, I'll share some things that I actually do, how my day goes, just to see these might be things that would be valuable to you. Are these slides useful? I mean, they're just pictures. I don't really care about any of them. But they're to give some ideas. So one of the things that I always think is fun is I try and say, let's just think back 15 years ago. And this is what always frightens people. There was no iPhone. Internet Explorer 6 was the primary 95% of the users' access to the internet. The first two tablets had just been released. Nextel, Push-to-Talk, and BlackBerry were the two largest markets out there. The only primary internet service provider was AT&T at that point, as the baby bells were just being broken down. And, of course, for those of us older than dirt, MySpace was our primary source of social media. And they had just introduced in 2005 their avatar kit so that you could have little animated avatars running around on your MySpace page. And we were in XP. Windows Me and Windows Home was an abysmal failure that they had happily crawled away from as they decided that who really wants to connect to a networked computer? We'll just use Windows Me. Oops. So that didn't go over well. That's only 15 years ago. Yikes. The things I spend a lot of time talking to people about is how do you figure out where we are in technology? And my answer is the digitals. It's a term I came up with in 2002 when I made a program, an idea called Andrew's Axiom. And the idea was that we really need to be thinking about creating a set of values for kids born from 2000 and on, because by the time they turn into adults, their proficiency on technology is so much stronger than ours, they will dictate terms because they use it in a different way than we do. People weren't thinking about that, nor even comprehending what that means. But digitals really do determine what software will be used. And there are no digitals on Facebook. They don't use Facebook. And when you look at that program, Facebook also is losing its older people. So it's a consolidating market, but for the authors, it's bread and butter of how people do stuff. So we got to be thinking about how do we make sense of this and manage the value of that. Is it that grim? Yeah, there's as much scary as we can get, so we don't need to talk scary. There's tons of scary. But there are some good things. What's good about technology? Well, it's all interconnected. That's a double-edged sword in that you have the advantage of most of the devices you have are ubiquitous. They connect, they talk to things. You can talk from your phone to your printer to your house wireless to your hardwired computers. All those things are as good as they are not. Because they're talking, they're also, for lack of a better term, promiscuous. They're made to talk easy. People always ask, why do I keep all of my devices disconnected from the internet? Because anything that's connected can be talked to by someone who's not you. And I can't tell you the number of people wandering through an airport who are broadcasting all of their information. How quickly a handful of us who are in IT in this room could get in all the computers and the phones in this room. And self-help. I watch people all the time coming out of the banking industry on security, downloading and sucking up all the contacts that they walk past on a daily basis. It's constant. It is the nature of stuff. And unless you're thinking about it, and if you put any personal information out there, it's out there. Your digital footprint is going to be vital to understand and how to control, because that's not what people spend their time on, because you just want the stuff to work. I just need to get my website going. I just talked to some expert who I paid who is supposed to be on top of that, and yet they're not. More and more of the people I talk to are engaging and struggling through the issues of trying to deal with this, and it's constant. Our team got paid to break into a whole host of banks last week. How did we do that? Well, we were told what we need to do is provide proof that we got into the room where the computers are. So we dressed up as Spectrum employees. Hi, here the internet's really slow. Oh, gosh, yeah, it's terrible here. Well, can you show me where the computers are? I'm here to help. Look at your modem. Great. That's not so hard. So we took a fruit basket out of one. We took a general ledger out of one. We took a bunch of computer disks out of one. All we had to do was bring proof that we had gotten there. And every single branch. Did a presentation in a state for the national credit unions. 700 credit unions showed up. So, if you guys get hacked, what's your plan? How long can you guys handle it? What do you do? Crickets. They had no plan. One person out of the 700 eventually raised his hand. Call the IT guy? Good luck with that. That's the plan. So, my first comment to you, the first thing I want you guys to retain is vigilance means have a plan. Start with a plan. Doesn't matter if it's a good plan or a bad plan. Most people don't have a plan. And so that is the annoyance of this whole talk. The droning I'm doing is about making sure we think about having a plan. Because if at least you've got a plan, you've got somewhere to start, because most people have their plan reactively. Uh-oh, I can't get in. Is there a plan? Is there an IT guy? What happens if I call the 800 number and I'm on hold for 4 hours? I had my flight changed at midnight, and so they said I was going to miss it. And my flight was I had to leave at 4 in the morning. And they called me at 11:58 and said, "Hi, your flight's been changed. To rebook, press 1. I pressed 1. Your hold time is 3 hours and 49 minutes. Uh-oh. So I would have to be at the airport 10 minutes later. Oops, not good. Having a plan is going to be where we start. So, some future proofing. What I'm often paid to do is to think about what's happening in the future. Here are some things that I know and things we should be thinking about. 1, you are going to be typing less. You are going to spend a lot more time talking. The digitals are your indicator, your canary in the coal mine of what's happening. Kids watch video and listen to audio and talk at all their things. They type nothing. My mother, my 80-year-old mother, who's called Oma, wails at my children because she writes letters to all of my children and all of her 7 grandchildren and cries and cries and cries because none of them read script, because script was a elective in 3rd grade for them. My great-great-great-great-grandfather was President Rutherford B. Hayes. Hey, that's pretty cool. None of my children can read all of the writings I have of his presidency because it's script. They talk at things. They watch video. They are used to the complete on-demand full drink of high-speed internet. They don't know what dial-up was. They have no idea what it means to have not had a computer until they come to our house in the kingdom. Our family's house is in the Northeast Kingdom, the Canadian border of Vermont. Touch-tone phones? Nope. One television station in English? We're told touch-tone in 2025, for sure this time. For sure this time. So there is one place in the world where they spend a little bit of their life without technology, and that's been helpful. But kids don't consume it that way, and so we need to be thinking about what it means for the next generation and how you are going to serve them your entertainment form when the bulk of them aren't reading books in the same way. They're consuming different media. And the tools that will cater to them, and as the growing consumer and spending consumer, they will be dictating terms of how they interface with technology. If 15 years ago you were told you would have a pocket computer that basically is your everything, and I can tell you, walking up and down the hall, about 80% of the people look like this as they walk up and down the hall. They're not looking at you, they're looking at their little carryable. So, things that we know for sure, yeah, we're going to be talking at our devices. Do you think desktop software will still be a thing? Not the way it is now. I don't think you will install software on any physical device. I think everything you will use will probably be cloud-based because of the cost basis. Note processors and all the rest of this hardware is very expensive. So you make it cheaper, you make it more affordable by making everything in the cloud. The cloud wasn't even a thing 10, 15 years ago. And even now, people mistake what it actually does. So that's stuff. But what happens when you don't have access to the internet? Happens all the time. I often ask people, how often are you down? I'm not down. You're down all the time. You just don't spend any time measuring it. People don't watch and track their internet to see how up and down it is all the time. Go to downdetector.com someday and watch the sections of the United States all over the world that are down. They're down all day, every day. It's everywhere. People just don't track it. Paranoids, like a handful of the IT people in here, track it. So when you're down and you have no access to your stuff, what do? How do you deal with that? So, see, I said I wasn't going to do gloom and doom, and I keep going back there. Darn it. That's my old computer. Yikes. That thing was built in 84. Very scary, but it was awesome in its day. And that was right when AOL said, hey, we're moving up to 9600 baud. Awesome. I built my first one, a hand-built Timex Sinclair. We soldered that thing, I think, in 74. In 1980, when my dad was at IBM, I begged him to get a 20-meg hard drive. And he said to me, in what world will anyone need more than a 10-meg hard drive? Extra $1,000. Really? That's what you want to spend our money on? Really? This is the stuff that we really need to be talking about today. This is really the things I think that we can make sense of that you can leverage. Two-factor authentication, that's an annoying phrase, but it is one of the first things that you should be doing on every device and every website you go to. It is a nightmare until it's not, because the number of people that I see emails from that have been hacked because they don't have a second thing checking up on. Now, if I say words that make no sense, that means I'm fired, and you raise your hand and say, I'd like to buy a vowel, because that means I didn't do my job. Does everyone know what two-factor authentication is? Is that a real thing? Okay, wow. So this crowd is nodding, and last one I was like, yeah, Bueller, crickets. Two-factor authentication. And it's happening everywhere like that, because, so here's the scary thing about passwords. Everyone thinks, oh yeah, password's not that big a deal. In 1 second, I have a cracker program that can present 8 million combinations. How do you feel about your password now? 8 million a second. Yikes, that's not good. And that's because it's a software designed to do that. Probably just on a regular search key string, it's probably 2 to 3 million all day long. Not fun stuff. Password vaults, they are worth their weight in gold. Why? Because you guys keep getting new apps. More apps, more this, more that. You're trying to do your banking online. You're trying to do all sorts of things online. Okay. You're buying a vowel. That means you've won something. We'll have to have lovely door prizes. See, I wasn't paying attention enough. I should have brought prizes. What is a password vault? The idea of a password vault is a software piece that lets you store your passwords and your usernames on it, and it requires an extensive password to access, and it works as a plug-in in your browsers. And it is very volatile toward things trying to intrude in it and talk to it, other than the long query string you have. And then when you go to the URL, the website, or the application, it prompts you and fills in the information for you. That is invaluable and the best $5, $60 a year, maybe $5, $10 a month that you can spend. Because, so, for example, in my case, I have somewhere north of 850 passwords. And so that's across my 15 internet accounts. Well, I pay 2 people full-time to read my email, because I'm not able to read my email, and I tell everyone who sends me email, don't send me email. You don't want to, because I'm not the one reading it. But a password vault is invaluable. Safari is an internet browser. That is the tool that you use to go to. Safari has a secondary function that allows it to store some passwords, and that's using the memory, the resident memory on your computer to do that. But that's a secondary function, and that then means that anyone who breaks into your internet browser is now reading their entire stored list, which is... I'll send you guys a list of all of them. There's a bunch of different ones, and it really depends on what you prefer. But I have preferences, but I'd rather send you the list and then say these are ones that I know work well, and these are other ones that people buy. Therefore, you don't have my bias, but you can at least know my preference. So we'll start that way. Number 3 and number 1. Oh, question. I would not be doing that. Correct. Oh, sorry. Okay. So the question was Google, helpfully, as many other programs does, say, hey, good news, I'll store your password for you, and I'll just put it over here that you can't get to unless you beg me, and we have no customer support. Oops. So, yes, I would not use theirs. Many people do a lot of cloud storage and backup, which is great, and it's really cheap. You just can't ever get it back without paying a lot of money. So because it's what you're doing right now, one of the things we'll talk about near the end is, here are some things that people are probably doing, and start slow and try and unhook to some of the different things you're doing today. But what happens is people go to these events and go home and say, 911, 911, uh-oh, house is burning down. And the cats have fled and the dog is still barking. Somebody rescue me and get me out. And the cats were the only smart ones and ran away. Do a couple things at a time. And that's why I say number 1 is a real good one. 2-factor authentication is a thing you can turn on and off. And you can do that immediately. And the second one is passwords and passphrases. I always try and explain to people how quickly technology reads and understands and absorbs passwords. That's an easy one. Don't use passwords. Passwords are cracked instantly. There's almost nothing you can do that's not crackable. But the easiest thing that I recommend is think about your favorite song. That's the easiest way to do it. And what I suggest to people is take the first letter in the first 8 words or whatever it is. Somebody give me a favorite song. This is not a test. Roxanne. Okay. So what are the first words to Roxanne? You want to pick a song that you recognize easily and know the words to inside and outside. And then what I do is I take the first letter of the first 8 to 10 words, and I make that my password. I capitalize certain letters in my head. I always capitalize. And so then it is a nonsensical thing that you know instantly. But it is not a word. And then you add numbers to it that are significant to you that are not your birthday. Look on Facebook. This is constant. Name your cat your favorite first pet. Or what your stripper name is the first 3 letters of the street you live on and the last 3 letters of your last name. All those things are designed to elicit information that people store as database for cracking passwords. So I always write on those, password, password, password. You'll see, it's not here. It's in one of my last slides. I have a litmus test. I tell my mother. I call it the sandwich test. And it's this. Mom, picture your favorite sandwich. Everyone's got a favorite sandwich, hopefully. Now picture it, you see it, you encounter it on the street. Would you pick that sandwich up and eat it? Then why would you click on an email from someone you don't know? Why would you go to a link that you've never been to without reading it? Because clicking is easy. More likely you'd kick the sandwich or make sure the dog got it. Don't click on it if you don't know it. And vigilance is the thing. It's the bottom of this list, attention to detail. It is the hardest thing, and it's why I said attending this, if you take anything away, it's realizing you're going to have to invest 30 to 60 seconds of the rest of your life every day on detail. If you have any slight more attention to detail, you increase your chances astronomically of not suffering a catastrophic event. And that's what hacking and phishing and all these other terrible things are. Catastrophic to your business. You are all self-employed business people. You are all on the hook making and creating and crafting your material and storing it where you choose to do it. You are beholden to readers and consumers of your product, but you're on the hook and you're in charge. And there's no one to blame but you. And unfortunately, you're an easy catch. And so that's a thing we got to think about. Encryption, that's a scary word. We'll talk about that. Backups, lots of people buy backup solutions and never test them. My big client that went through this massive ransomware was supposed to test every single month. Their last test was at the beginning of the year. And so that's as recently as they could. So they lost somewhere north of 8 months of their data. Imagine what that costs to a billion-dollar company. That's an expensive day. You guys, get a backup software, test it. Make it a monthly habit, something you do. It's a nightmare. It's annoying. But once you start doing it every day, you'll at least do it. And that's the thing that we want to do. These are the simple things that if you get your hands on them, it's like antivirus. Most of you probably know what antivirus is. The bad news is most of the crypto software today cracks antivirus instantly. But there's a handful that they don't, not as quickly. And there's a handful that start screaming if they're being attacked. And so I'll make sure you know which ones those are so that you can be thinking about maybe I'll invest the $20 a year in changing. There are none. And your answer is, so the question was, you go to the expert, right, at either the Apple store or at your computer store, and they say, oh, don't worry about it. This is all taken care of. Mac doesn't need antivirus, or you've already got antivirus. You're good. I believe no one. Trust no one. You need to make sure constantly that you are staying proficient on this stuff. There's a reason people pay me the obscene amount they do on a daily basis, is because the answer is they're wrong.
And what about the Mac encryption that's native?
Yeah, I have a 3-hour opinion on that. The answer is there are ones that work, and there are ones that work less. You want one that starts crying at you as it's being attacked. It is easier to just roll over, which is what most of them do. It's not. It's trying to do its job. Its job has been circumvented and it's obsolete. Now, they are constantly moving the bar to fix that stuff, but they're trying to fix that stuff. You want to be on the other side of the equation so that you're ahead of that curve, because these people have what you don't have. They have time. So that's all they're doing, is banging away on passwords, banging away on open internet sites, trying to send you notes. The most tragic thing we dealt with was a group of folks who had a retirement account, 80 years worth of their retirement. This is a very large group of religious folks who ran the retirement account for an entire state. This is a couple months ago. The person in charge got an email that said, just verify your account details because we're updating our software. 3 clicks later, the entire retirement fund for all of the members in the state for the last 80 years vanished. They got in touch with no one for a week. There's not a lot we can do a week later. 3 minutes, and it was gone. So imagine how quick your stuff's going. It's going. So online banking, I tell my mother, you're not doing online banking because you don't know what you're doing. You're not capable of following fast enough. She still feels guilty if she tries to hang up. Well, if someone called me and wanted to give a survey, I couldn't hang up on them. Hang up on them.
What about usernames?
What about them?
Is there anything special we should be doing with them, like what we're doing with passwords and things like that?
Well, given my choice, I don't use names. I use things. I pick letters and numbers that are random. So my kids go crazy because our Wi-Fi password is 56 characters, which I make them memorize, which makes them crazy. And it means nothing, but it means something to me, and now it means something to them. So I can see all my neighbors' Wi-Fi, and constantly, as the president of my HOA, walk around the neighborhood and say, thanks for the free print job. Do you see that annoying thing I just printed off your printer? That's telling you I can print off your printer. You don't want me to print off your printer. First of all, turn your stuff invisible so nobody sees your broadcasting, screaming network. And secondly, don't use usernames. Use numbers and letters. The more easy you make it, the more easy you make it. Most people lock their doors. There's a reason you lock your door. If you leave your windows up but leave your laptop in the back of your car, depending where you park, that opportunity just increases risk. And so that's what you have to decide. All of this stuff is just mitigating risk. That's all I'm telling you, is that if you think a little more carefully on your password and you think a little more carefully on turning on two-factor authentication and upgrading your antivirus, you drastically reduce your incidence of trauma. And the trauma is then downtime, which is money. And that's where this matters. Imagine losing all of the books you've written. Imagine someone else owning the rights to your domain name because you didn't register it on that 5-minute grace period, because there are bots that find common words, and they literally search all the books and the titles, and the more popular it is, the more it's getting banged on all the time. That 5 minutes to prepay for the year and auto-renew so that you're not worrying about that. Well, my IT guy is supposed to do that, isn't he? Well, I have Spectrum Internet. I have AT&T Internet. Isn't that their job? No. They just sell you the service. Facebook. Why aren't they listening to me? Because Facebook is getting 50,000 messages a minute. Risk insurance? Absolutely. So here's how that works. Well, one of the things I'm going to always recommend is make sure that you find a good cyber attorney, because those are the people who can actually have those conversations. Your regular attorney can't. They'll tell you they can. They're lying. They can't. You need a cyber attorney, someone who actually deals with this stuff all the time. And yes, you can get ransom insurance, and how it works, if they pay, and 50% of them say pay and 50% don't pay, if they pay, you'll never be underwritten again. That's how that works. So there's good and bad to all of that. One time, maybe, depending on the value of it and depending on what your overall NRI is. And so who knows that answer. But, yeah, you could get benefits to that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if Apple Cloud is how you're relying on all your stuff, make sure that your passwords to it are good, and make sure that your backups are on a device that is not left plugged in. So when I tell people to back up and they back up to the cloud, make a backup to the cloud, and then have a device you plug in every 30 days that you suck everything off of it. You're paying $200 for this device, but it's your entire history. And you back up and you unplug it. If you leave it plugged in, because that's easy and convenient, when all your stuff gets encrypted, your stuff's getting encrypted. And so you're done. And so this is easy stuff. And we only want to do a couple of things. If you walk away with nothing else, attention to detail. Pay a little bit more attention. Mm-hmm. All your iterations, right. Right, that you then had to authenticate with. Yep. All day long. I get paid all day long to do that. My school offered $100 when I was a little kid if we could get into the network. My dad had this 3-foot-tall phone coupler thing. You know, it shook when you were playing Lunar Lander, and it was printing out on these massive pages, Lunar Lander. And we got offered $100. I'd never seen $100. But 6 hours later, I got into the school. And one day later, I got $100, and the school had a big old board meeting. They were not happy. People who are young have time, and they've got nothing else to do. Have my phone dial all night? That sounds like a plan. Dial. And so it did. I eventually found the school. We talked about password lockers. Passwords are a nightmare. Encryption. The issue about encryption is it's really good, but it's a lot of overhead and it's a lot of vigilance. If you're not doing a lot of high-end security stuff, it's not going to mean a lot to you. You're going to get prompts by many of your devices. Encrypt your drive. It means adding stronger passwords, and most people forget them. So if you don't have a password vault and you encrypt your stuff, now you're never getting it back yourself. Oops. Unless you pay some guy named Bob who knows this kid, who knows this friend who worked with Ferris Bueller and passed out at 31 flavors, and that kid can unencrypt your stuff for a couple of grand. Encryption is useful if you're pretty militant about your stuff. So we're going to pass on that one this year. We'll do this again next year, and then we'll start adding on so that as you guys become experts and aficionados, you can ask weirder and weirder questions. Phishing. I love the bike picture because phishing is the question that has never left us. This Nigerian prince has got, $300,000 for you. I beg for those phone calls. My wife goes crazy when she gets a spam call and I take them. I love those calls. I'm very excited to talk to those people. And don't take those calls, and don't click on things from people you don't know. And never respond to any email that isn't from someone that you know. Work off your contact list and whitelist those. And what I mean by that is make sure that those are the people you see that are highlighted in your email and all the rest are not, so that they get put into a separate box. The reason I segregate all of my mail is because I only want to hear from a handful of people, and I'm hearing from thousands and thousands every day. And they all get filed away and shuffled, and everyone who works for me and everyone who is a vendor of me and everyone who interacts with me gets my 15-point rule list for how I read email. And it's a nightmare. But it basically says what's going to happen if you send me a message and you expect me to read it. Messages are to CC and BCC. And I have a whole set of complex rules on what happens when you send me an email. And so getting more vigilant about how you manage your email means paying a little more attention to it, because it's just so easy to click on it. Uh-oh, what was that? And now you're getting text messages the same way, and you're getting phone calls the same way. This stuff, the more we open the gate, the more we open the gate. And there's a reason people set up dams, and the reason people put locks on doors is to prevent stuff. See, we need to be thinking about that, and that's just a little more intelligence on it. Antivirus, the ones that really seem to be working are at the bottom, and again, you're going to get a copy of these. Oh, I said again. I apologize. I'm not supposed to say again. I will make sure to send you all these slides. The ones that seem to be working the best lately. Sophos has done a fantastic job. We watched them defend very successfully all summer long against Onslaught. It's been actually unheard of. We've been quietly swapping out a lot of firewalls from really trusted brands because Sophos is screaming the loudest and preventing the most overfill. So that's been a very good one. Same with Cylance and Bitdefender. Even, amazingly enough, Microsoft's internal one, they have upped their game amazingly. Amazing. Would never have expected it. And when I owned a reseller company many, many years ago, we were selling all the other stuff. McAfee is the one. I mean, all the ones that you know are the ones we were selling all day long. They're great. They're just a little behind the eight ball right now. You want something that's going to fight and scream, not something that's going to fight and then say, oh, you better call for support. Getting through on that call is too little, too late. We don't want to do that. We want to be on the other side. Cylance on the bottom. Oh, it's not displaying? I don't know why I can see it. See where it says the good ones at the very bottom? It may not be visible, or someone's head might be in the way. That's a problem. Anyway, don't worry about writing it down. I'm sending you the slides. Just look at the slides, and you'll see it. Don't you hate that? My job is to just look. I don't touch very often. Usually I get paid to. So I am a professional. Never mind what I am. So how do you deal with this stuff? It's a night. It really, really, really is a night. Am I running out of time? I'm probably way running out of time. Oh, I have 30 seconds, so I'm really fired. Yeah, that's how. Given my choice, I will talk until I run out of oxygen. Okay, let's go away from all this stuff. Stuff that we talked about. Get a vault. It's easy. It's going to make it so that you can store all your passwords and make better ones. Think about your favorite song, something easy that you can remember that is not your birthday, that is not your wedding anniversary, that is not your social security number. For those of us who are old enough, our social security number was our ID in college. That was on your damn ID. And for those of us who are military, that was your ID. Use your social security. Oops. Most of the credit card data in the United States has been already stolen. Your stuff is out there. Have a monitoring service that's looking on the dark web to see if there's activity around your Social Security number. Do that every day. It's a $20 or maybe $10 a month investment, best investment you can make. Focus on your passwords. Do some simple stuff that's going to make your life better. Don't swarm on it and try and do it all at once. You'll get overwhelmed. Pick a thing, make a little plan, and that's where you're going to go. The other thing is hide your Wi-Fi network. Everyone leaves their stuff out. As soon as I go anywhere, the first thing I do, because my phone is promiscuous, because he's that kind of a guy, I turn everything off. Turn off Wi-Fi, turn off Bluetooth. So I'm not phoning home. And it's in airplane mode. My phone stays in airplane mode. When I want to use it, I use it. The phone is a trigger for most people. They react when the phone says react. I'm sending you a message. I'm sending you a call. My phone works in the opposite way. When I want to use it, I turn it on. And then my phone's in place. The other thing I'll say, because I'm already in overtime and triple secret probation and so fired it's not even funny, a secure ID wallet. Make sure you have something that is immune to RFID, because it is so easy for me to put on RFID scanner apps on my phone. Roger that. Exactly. And so all your stuff cannot be scanned. And in COVID times, I just flip this up, and they can get access to whatever they want, pull out the card they need, put it back in, and I don't touch anything. Simple. An RFID wallet. And the last thing, never keep, when you're traveling, I never ever keep my card for my hotel, my credit cards, and my ID in my stuff. I always carry those things in a shoe. Why? Because the number of people who get robbed, mugged, or hit by someone who knows what they're doing, they know what they're doing. People who do this. And you're carrying a purse, you're carrying a wallet, that's what they are trained to find. Misdirection is your best friend. It's that 30 to 60 seconds that is going to spare you a ton of grief when you are out of town with no driver's license and can't go back to the airport. When you don't have your credit card, or when someone has your hotel key. I have two shoes. I can put stuff in both. It's a 30 to 60, and that's just a habit. I don't even notice it. I always ask for one extra hotel card, stick it in my shoe. So the question was, where is Norton on the food chain? Norton is a hopeful contender trying to get better. The challenge is a lot of the larger institutions have a very slow response rate when it comes to being able to take your frantic question when you call saying, how come nobody can get this file that I keep trying to send? Well, it's because the words you have in it are getting caught in someone's spam filter, and so it won't get released by certain antiviruses. So. Mm-hmm. Correct. Right. I always leave it off. It's high risk. The phone is a promiscuous device. It's being talked to. As much as you're talking to other devices, it's being talked to by other devices. And people who have time have built stuff to talk to your phone. No. It's just you're deciding what level of risk you tolerate. That's really, all of this stuff is about risk. Using a computer, deciding to be always on the internet, always broadcasting your stuff, always out there. If you're not turning off your computer every single night, I unplug mine. Why? Because I know better. That's not the answer for most people. They want the convenience of use. I want the Wi-Fi network. I want this. I want that. So I want you to do simple steps. Passwords to passphrases. Upgrade your antivirus game. Get a password vault so you're using more complex terms. Do some simple stuff and hide things. As much as you can hide, start hiding. Every single day, your iPhone will turn back on your Wi-Fi network, even if you turn it off, every single day. So if that's important to you, to not be letting other people know that you're wandering around, just turn it off. I'll send you on the list. I have some recommendations just so that it's specific. Yes. No, they're great. Those are password vaults. Those are great ones. You want to use ones that specifically are that. What you want to be very afraid of is the websites that ask to do that. Google friendly asks to do that. Apple friendly asks to do that. I know. Am I totally fired because there's another group coming in? Right. It's an easy thing, and people struggle with that all the time. That's about an 8-hour conversation. The idea behind what does security look like in the future is very much a question of positing what we think is going to happen. And so the easiest answer I can say to you, people want convenience, and our threshold is low. Therefore, the amount of pain we're willing to endure is also low, which means you are at high risk with most of the activities you do. My suggestion, read reviews and get an understanding from what you can understand out there on what things have been hacked. Facebook is what we use all the time, and Facebook has incredible challenges. Be aware of that. Understand what that means to you. Change your passwords every quarter. Make that a habit. People never change their password until the system makes them change it. On a quarterly basis, have a plan that you just one day a quarter, you sacrifice an hour of your life to save all your stuff. You'll never get an answer that will meet your requirement. All I can tell you is vigilance is specific to your threshold for risk. That's what you'll have to decide. Every single person will give you a different answer. There is no way to get a technical, professional answer that is uniform. That's the only way I can answer that question. Meaning, can you buy a vowel? I would not render my professional opinion in an open forum. That's the easiest answer I can give you. But I'm wandering around everywhere, and I'm easy to find. So you can always give me a drive-by, the nice kind, not the bad kind, and then I can offer you at least an opinion. I think that's probably everything that matters. Did I have anything else out there? I know, he's a favorite of mine. I love Ghostbusters. Literally, that's what I'm called. People say that they call me because they can't get a solution to a problem, so that I'm Ghostbusters. Literally, my title is Professional Adventurer. I'm called when people can't figure out what to do. That's why they call me. The internet isn't a temple. It's not a thing. It's a direction. It's an avenue to get to other stuff. Just remember that. And remember, it's about time. They've got time and you don't. So planning and observation are your best things. I hope this was somewhat useful information. And Craig has my information and info. If you need me, you're always welcome to reach out to him, and he will then yell at me, and that will get you in touch with me. Thank you so much.